G'day viewers, welcome to part 2 of the repairs of Gottlieb's Grand Slam from 1972. Well, here we are in the goat shed today. It's Wednesday, September 27th, 2023. Year's slipping by very quickly. It's 19 degrees Celsius outside, which equates to 66.2 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a partly cloudy day, and really not much rain is expected, maybe a little bit tomorrow, and then we're heading towards warmer weather again. Alright, now this job has turned out to be a much bigger job than we originally anticipated. We've started underneath the Playfield now, as you can see, and we've discovered a number of things. Now you can see some reddish, orangish coloured wires here that someone's retrofitted at some stage of the game's life to do with some of the general illumination and features. Lights for bumpers. You can see a nice shiny bumper just here. We've put a new bumper kit in that. Now the other thing you might be able to see up here is the Roto unit PCB board with all the new rivets on it. Well, not new rivets, I do beg your pardon, all the cleaned up rivets. So we've done that. We've got the whole Roto unit out and we've serviced that. We were a bit apprehensive about doing that at first. It seemed to be working okay, but on closer inspection I noticed some things on it that weren't really right. So while we're here, we're going to do it right. Remember, do it right, do it once. That's what I was taught anyway, and believe me, that philosophy in life is very, very true. It's helped me a lot throughout my career. So we've done, yesterday we had 2 pop bumper repair kits delivered to us. They've been fitted nice, and everything's nice and shiny there. We buff up the frames on the soft buffing wheel. We've done the same for that's one of the frames there for the ball kickers. Each ball kicker has been repaired at one stage. That's these ones here I'm referring to that go in the yellow bits for the runs. So the kicker itself has been brazed. I'll show you. There you go, you can see where it's been brazed in there. The whole 3 of those have been done. So they must have used to have broken off. I don't know. We haven't seen a terrible lot of baseball games. I think I mentioned once before in a video, maybe not necessarily about this game, we actually had a play ball in here quite a few years ago, probably 5-6 years ago now. Seems forever anyway. And what had happened, that was one of those typical games where someone had chopped all the wires off out of the head because they didn't unplug the Jones plugs, and of course all the wires were faded, they'd gone bleached white almost. So I think someone had put a wire on wrong, and we spent a bit of time on it and we couldn't sort of get it right. The guy that owned it was going to have a go at it. We sort of steered him in the right direction, and I don't know whatever happened to it. But yeah, baseball games we don't see a lot of, but they're quite good, they're quite fascinating. We see probably more pro football and games like that, which we recently just did a video on. Now, once again, we're not here to show you individual repairs, how to do step units. We've done videos on those before, and we expect that people will look those up and check our videos out. We're just in the middle of putting a flipper kit in this game, and I think then we've got to just start putting most things back together. So this morning we'll put all the kickers back in, the ball kickers out, getting new coil sleeves in, and what else have we got to do?
Put the rotor target in.
Yeah, we'll put the roto back in. I'll take you out and show you that in a moment. I've got that out in the new workbench out the back. The other thing that we noticed, which is quite bizarre really, I mean why it's happened we don't know. However, see all these holes here?
Yeah.
There's no screws in them.
Someone's pinched them.
There's only one.
There's 7 missing.
Yeah, there's only 2 screws in the whole side rail there, which is crazy. Don't know why that is. As we mentioned, I think the story to this machine really was that it was going to get scrapped, and somehow an opportunity came up to sell it, and that opportunity was seized, and it was put back together. There's something here written down. What's that say? Oh, it says Grand Slam. So so they knew which Playfield went where. It's obviously been sitting in a workshop or something, and that's Grand Slam. Not hard to work out. You turn it over and it says it on it. All right. Let's see what's Graham up to over there.
Well, I just buffed up all these kickers, and one of the springs snapped in half, so I had to replace that one.
Oh right, okay.
And now we're pretty well ready to put these back in the game.
Yep. I think
I just got to put new sleeves in the coils, and that's about it. The bumpers are ready; they've been done.
Yeah, I just showed the viewers the bumpers.
Just got to turn the machine upside down and get the bumpers out, and then do a bit of work on the actual bumper bodies and the rings, and turn it back over and put it back in. And we might even put some new lamp sockets in the bumper bodies, I think, because them ones are hardwired.
Yeah, someone's actually hardwired the pop bumper lamps in for some reason, and also the owner has fitted LEDs throughout this machine in a lot of areas. Some they haven't, but some they have. The other thing that we did do, and we mentioned this, but I'm just going to remind you about it. Each of those circuits on the back of the Roto unit have been checked and buzzed out. I've mentioned this before, and I'm going to mention it again. Where that wire goes through or goes around and gets soldered on, and those contacts, it can break away, and it can give you all sorts of trouble. I'm referring to this area here, between there and there, or anywhere for that matter. We had a little bit of wire break right off on the edge, and it was barely touching. This was on a multiplayer game, I can't remember what it was, and they wouldn't pay replays or specials, or once again, something to do with the replay circuit. And that's what it was. That wire was broken away. So, you have to pay careful attention to that. So we always get there and buzz it out, and we just check with our fingers to make sure it's okay. Once bitten, twice shy, hey viewers? So that's a handy little tip for you. But as I said, we've mentioned that time and time again. I know we repeat ourselves a lot here, and I think it's well worthwhile reminding people, because we have a lot of viewers that have only just joined us, and they may not have looked at our library of videos, and there's quite a lot on there now, and we've done pretty well, how to pull pop bumper bodies out. What else we done, Spanky? We've done pretty well every step unit.
Every drop target.
Known to man. Drop targets, we've covered those multiple times. Player units in multiplayer games.
We're getting Royal Guard in soon, so we're going to do a snap target video.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. We've only ever seen one Royal Guard before, or Palace Guard, one or the other.
I owned one for a while.
And they have those interesting snap targets in them, which we'll do a video on, because I guess because we can, and because you don't see too many of them. Well, let's go and have a look at the other part of the Roto mechanism and just show you what we've done to it. So here's the Roto target frame and its components. So we've put these in the ultrasonic cleaner, gave them a bath and a little bit of a polish up. As you can see, it looks, quite nice. It's not perfect, but gee, for 50-odd-year-old machine, it's not doing too bad. We've done a little bit of work on the escapement wheel. Now let me show you what's been involved there. The owner complained that no matter what he did, he'd tighten up the the Allen screws on the spider, and they'd still work its way loose over a period of time. Okay, we see that a fair bit and we address it. What the problem generally is, if we take the wheel out, it's this area here where the Allen screws bite in. They tend to get their own little marks, so we get that and grind it out of it and then file it up. I'm just having a little look at this. I might file this just a little bit better. Okay, we get one of those small Stanley hobby files and give it a work over. Also remember to check the gear teeth. There's no spots here, like on that flat area. This one, just mild. It's not really worth doing anything about, but you can file them. You've just got to be careful to keep the file straight. I think we've illustrated this on step switches we've done, where we've actually, the pawl has caught in a groove in the tooth, and you've got to fix that up. So we've just polished it up once again on the buffing wheel. I like to make sure that when you put the wheel in, it doesn't bind anywhere, so that's spinning quite freely. And what we'll end up doing, we'll end up putting a drop of machine oil on there. People ask us regularly in chats and so on what oil we use. Simply light machine oil, like sewing machine oil. That's what we use. Yep, I know about 3-in-1. I know about silicone oil. I did try silicone oil for a period of time there, maybe about 4 years ago, and I didn't like it. I could see that it was going to go and dry funny. I made a note of the machines we lubricated with silicone oil, and so far we haven't had any problems, but yeah, I just didn't really like silicone-based oil. You had to shake it up every time, and everything has its purpose, but for mechanical things. Now, believe it or not, all those manufacturers, Gottlieb, Williams, Bally, made service manuals back in the day. Yes, they did. And if anyone cares to read them, it will tell you what oil or grease to use on certain parts of the machine. Now, this comes up a lot. Of course, you don't lubricate anything on a pinball machine. You don't lubricate coil sleeves or plungers. You just don't do it. Pop bumpers, things like that, you don't do it. But mechanical metal-to-metal parts, you do need to lubricate. And that's what they used, a light machine oil, only they described it as a breed or a brand or something like that. Anyway, like I said, my background is office equipment, and I've used light machine oil all my life. So there you go. Right. So I better put this Roto unit back together, and we'll show you what it looks like when we've finished it. And then we'll move on to the troubleshooting of the unit once we get it all back together. So hopefully we'll be getting onto that very shortly. We've just sat the motorboard in the game and waiting for the Playfield to be put back in, and then we'll power it up. And viewers, we'll see what happens. There's just another thing I wanted to point out to you while I've still got this apart. You'll notice, or you may not notice, I've scored some marks there. Now, the reason that I do that is because that's what goes there. Now that's elongated, alright, so it's adjustable. Now sometimes they're elongated both horizontally and vertically, but you want that to go back roughly in the same spot that it came out of. Make sense? That way, if you do need to make any adjustment on it, you're reasonably close. You don't have to worry too much about where it was. Now, Gottlieb did a very good write-up, or someone did, on Roto targets. And you can get this on the net by searching Gottlieb Roto targets, and up it comes. and it shows you all the parts and the actual wherever it goes, and even talks about some adjustments that are available on the machine. But remember, when you're dealing with this sort of thing, the adjustments they often talk of are on machines that are when they were newer. Remember, we're working on these 50 years later, and you're going to get some surprises. Like, it's just little things that you don't probably notice, but like where this coil go, this plunger goes in there. Now, just think for a minute. I mean, it goes in the other way, but that can get a bit of up and down or that could get flat on the edges. I mean, there's not a lot you can do about that, but, you know, that's what I'm talking about. Things can get a little bit out of adjustment because of wear and tear. And a lot of these parts, I don't know that you can buy these arms or levers, whatever, new. You may not be able to. Matter of fact, I don't believe you can. So sometimes you've got to compensate for things like that. Always bear this in mind when you're working on these older games. It can make a big difference to you. If something doesn't look right or work or operate right, check it out before you put it all back together. It may save you having to pull it apart again. So that's why I do that little scroll there. In this case, I didn't take this part off. I rarely ever do. It's not necessary, and it's another adjustment that you need to do. It's in that little spiel I told you about a moment ago that's available online. So worth noting, don't you think? So there's the Roto unit all back together. Now it's time to go and fit it in the machine. As I showed you earlier, we've cleaned the plate, rivet plate. Done everything necessary there. Now we'll put that back in. One important thing on these Roto units, when you put them back in, always remember to get a little bit of movement. So I'll try and show you here. I always put this on temporarily. Just that little bit of play there, maybe about like a bit less than 1/8 of an inch, I think they recommend. That's quite important. And also when you operate that rotor that's spinning nice and freely, you've also got to have that little bit of step back. Remember, it goes and steps back. The adjustment on this to get more stroke on it is just done by the 4 screws here. Now the good news about this particular one, if we need to adjust it, we can get at it when we put it back in the machine, because it sits in like that. So that makes it a lot easier to get at if we really need to. But I think it should be pretty good. Alright, so I'm going to go put that back in the machine now. G'day viewers, this is part 2 of our Grand Slam baseball adventure. So today is Friday the 29th of September 2023 here in the Goat Shed in Newcastle, New South Wales, Australia. So it's currently 23 degrees Celsius outside, which equates to approximately 73.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, we've previously done a video on the Grand Slam and some of the things we were working on. This has turned out to be a much bigger job than we anticipated. Really, it was a bit of a mess. But all okay, we've got it going. Now, we actually have started this earlier on and gone through a few things, but I wanted to show you something that we discovered on the machine that we missed. And the telltale sign of this fault is that it will deduct 2 credits off the credit meter. Now, let's have a little look. The credit meter is currently on 7 credits. You can see it there. What I'm going to do, I'm going to start the game and we'll go into reset. And you see what's happened? There's 5 credits. It's subtracted 2. Now, this tends to happen when people pull the score motor apart. And I've got to be honest with you, we changed the motor itself in this and we didn't sort of notice it. You know, we didn't look. But
we didn't go near the dog's butt, so it was okay.
It wasn't us, someone else. It's been like this for ages. Now, we've seen this a number of times. But the other downside to this was that it put us into a mode of troubleshooting, and what was happening, when we score 100 points, we would get 200. So let's illustrate that. See, that 200, we hit a roto target that should have only given us 100 points.
And plus the kick-out holes.
And the kick-out holes should score 1,000, but we'll drop it in. We get 2. Now, it's quite ironic that that occurred on this game.
So we noticed that playing on the rollover, it's play a single hand, so it's got to be motor related. So pretty well, and it only happens when the score motor moves. So you can get it, and it's all good.
Yes, that's true. And as I say, the irony of this is that only last Friday night, so a week ago today, we were on a coaching clinic with Mark Gibson's Fun with Pinball, and they started talking about masking circuits. Now this is something that I personally, I didn't recognise at first the terminology they were using, but all it simply means is that those of you that know, a score motor on a Gottlieb has the ability to fire 5 times per cycle, per 120 degrees, with the gear teeth on the score motor. So if you score 500 points, 5 clicks and you've got 500 points. But what happens when you only get 200 or 300 or 400 or an odd amount when the score motor's turning, when it gives you 5 clicks? Well, it does it by opening switches in sequence on the score motor, and that's called a masking circuit. Now, as I said, I think Gottlieb refer to that, and I could stand corrected, in their service manual as shorting switches. I just, once again, I haven't got the manual handy, but needless to say. Now, this is reasonably involved and it's quite clever. But on this game, the masking circuit consists of 4 motor switches, 2C, 3B, 1B and 4C. Now, if you look at a timing chart on a Gottlieb, that's that chart down the bottom left, you'll see that those switches operate in order. Now, this is all to do with timing. So because we were getting 2 pulses, we decided that 2C, which is the first switch that needs to open to prevent the other scoring, mustn't be working properly. So we actually went and had a look at each of the switch stacks, and what we ended up finding I'll show you in a minute. But we hadn't initially noticed it taking off 2 credits. As soon as you see that, that also points to 2 pulses going past motor 2C, because motor 2C operates off the second pulse of motor 1A. And this is getting all a bit convoluted, isn't it? But what I want people to do is, to save me doing it all, if you want to go to Mark Gibson's Fun with Pinball website, he's done an animation of this. I think it's up there now, and also of how these baseball games work. Now let me just show you what the fault is. So motor switch 2C always has the switch dog in the long throw position. Now this is the switch dog right here, and the long throw position, the dog should come out to here. Hope you can see there. Pretty well level with the end of the dog. There's 2 slots for it to go in. It is in the incorrect slot. It needs to come out of there and be put in this slot here. That's the long throw position. On a Gottlieb, motor switch 2C is always in the long throw position. Once again, that's to do with timing, it's to do with subtracting credits, and a few other different things in the circuit. But as I said, the telltale sign is it's subtracting 2 credits, and in this case it's also giving us our problem why it's actually scoring an extra 100 or an extra 1000, because it's pulsing off the first tooth of 1A, not the second. Now, as I said, I hope that makes a lot of sense to you. So Graham's going to go around now and remove that stack and fix it. And we'll do that while we're live, and we'll talk about a few other things that we noticed on this game. So we're going to turn it off, and that's a timely reminder too. And he's turned it off over at the power point. We don't know your skills with electricity, and you've got to bear in mind that these machines have current running through them. So always turn the machine off, and remember the early games on the front door have line voltage on them, and all that divides the metal and the current is a piece of fish paper. Now, did you see what he did there? He simply got a block of wood to jack that score motor up. He's getting some light to shine down on the subject, and he's just going to take these 2 screws out. Now, the thing to watch out for is make sure that motor stack hasn't got any wires going to the switch below. If they do, Gottlieb did that a lot to take the circuit from one to another without extra wiring. So there, you've got his hand in the road. When we get that out, see how that's in. Give us that dog here. There it is. I'll get that in fact. That dog is that's the short position. Therefore, oops, a little technical glitch with the gimbal. Therefore, it won't operate correctly. So let's put it in the right position. There it is now. It doesn't take long. So someone's had that switch stack apart at some point in time, and of course...
And put it back in the right way.
Yeah. And gives you a headache up the road there.
As we said, this was definitely a parts machine, and someone's just chucked it together. Not caring. Just to pretty well make a quick dollar by selling it. It's very important you line up the cam right in the middle the best you can.
Now, one of the other things we discovered while Graham's just doing that, the lamp sockets, there were no lamp sockets in the pop bumpers. Someone had hardwired some LEDs in. Well, we took them out and put lamp sockets in, and the LEDs that were in there were green, and
they were flicking
and carrying on, so we've just changed them to incandescent, and that's fixed that. I mean, you probably gather we're not great fans of LEDs in electromechanical games, but it's your game, do what you want.
Some of the feature lights, like special, it's not too bad, but personally we don't like them.
Now he's just checking that. Now, another thing we had to do,
all seems good.
See the door plug there, you'll notice a blue wire and another wire next to it, which I think's brown. They were just pushed in, those wires. As soon as you lifted the plug out, the wires came out. So we've actually soldered them in. That's to do with the replay button, I believe.
Well, Orange and blue is the coin switch.
Ah, yeah, they've used the coin switch. Yeah, that is. It's not brown. It's meant to be orange, but it's badly discoloured. So that's another problem that well, it wasn't the problem we had. It's a problem we fixed up. Now let's have a look now and see what's going on now. Okay, so we've fixed that now, and at the moment we've got 4 credits. There they are, and now it's only deducted 1, which is good. Now let's have a look and see, has it remedied our other problem? There's a 500 go, 1,000, look at that.
Yep.
The 100. So something as simple as that, someone not paying attention to what was going on, has caused problems up the track. And
would have been like that for years and now.
Probably it's been like that for a long, long time. So that's all fixed now. Now, the only other thing that we found, on this game it's set for 34 runs for a replay, 48, 56. Now what we found earlier when we were testing it, it was paying runs on 44 runs and the aforementioned figures. It was also paying a replay on match, but it was not paying a replay on high score. And our high scores are 44, 58 and 66. Now what the problem was it's actually in the score reel. And we had that here a minute ago. Oh, where's it gone? Just about to fall off. What the problem was, in the score reel, we had that finger there was bent. Now, that's the finger that sits under the plate. Now, all you've got to do to test that, you hook a wire onto the C for common, and then you might want to look at, sometimes these aren't,
you can pretty well put it on anyone.
Anyone.
Just go through it.
Say clip that onto number 3 and just step through it manually.
And after 10 you should get at least one hit.
You should get the hit when it's on 3 with the meter, you know, the continuity test. And that's how we found that problem. So a fairly simple problem, but we probably made it a little bit more complex because we actually eyeballed it and it looked okay, but it wasn't. So that's all good now. That was a fairly easy fix. So the only other problem we noticed was that on the Roto target there's actually a target that says 1,000, and I don't know if we're going to be able to see it. Oh, that's probably too much. There's all the targets as home run there now. And what was happening, the switch was a little bit too close and it was vibrating and it was giving us a little bit of grief. Now this machine's been fitted with, I guess they're silicon rubbers, as we mentioned, they're green and so on.
The owner likes them.
Yeah, the owner likes them. I guess that's all that matters.
I'll leave them on.
Spanky doesn't, do you, Spank? No.
No, he's always had the orange.
What do you viewers think of those green? Do you like them?
Sort of suits the game, but...
Yeah, it sort of matches the diamond for the baseball.
I don't think the rubbers gives as much bounce as the
ones. That's right. Oh, it looks like we've got is that base loaded, that middle one at the top?
That one's not.
Yeah, we've got trouble with the light there on that base.
I think we've changed these two, but we mightn't have done that one.
Yeah, might have forgot to do that one. Okay, so there you go. So here's another game saved
yep.
by the Goat Shed. We do our very, very best, and I mentioned earlier, we've got our training course coming up tomorrow, so we've got to go and get organised for that. And I guess we'll end this video very shortly. And once again, we would like to remind you to subscribe to our channel, and please give us the thumbs up, as Ronnie says, from Joe's Classic Video Arcade, for taking the trouble to making these for you. And this has been another GoShare presentation.